You're tuned in to the MtG Cable cast, where they cover Magic, the Gathering Finance. All right? You don't know about it? You're tuned in right now and get ready to learn some shit. Buckle your seat belts and light a blunt and get ready for the MtG Cable cast. Starring Reptar and Thirsty, them onion head motherfuckers.
Hey guys, welcome to the newest episode of the Cabal Cast. This time, we're doing our All Will Be One set review.
Yes.
Because, well, we got away from doing these because it turns out if you have to do one every single month, you don't have any fresh content to make.
Yeah.
So, we're going to hit this one usual style, what we think is good, bad, what's just right. We're giving it the Goldilocks treatment. So with that, let's get it started.
Yep. So we're going to start out with the overhyped cards and then work our way down. And for me, the most overhyped card in the set is the flagship card of the set, and it is Elish Norn, Mother of Machines. This card right now is pre-ordering for $61 at a minimum, maybe $170, depending on which variant you're looking for, or $240. I'm sorry, I can't keep track of them all. And I just do not believe in this card at all. It might take off in Standard or Pioneer, but that takes a rather large shift in either one of those formats. And I'll bring up Elish Norn so everybody can see it. It costs 5 mana, 4 and a white. It is a 4/7. And after that, the card reads similar to a lot of things we've seen before. It is Panharmonicon, and it is Torpor Orb. Now, saying that, this isn't good as a stacks general because you have 2 mana Thalia. That's what you should be playing as your stacks general. So this is like stacks light, babies first stacks, whatever you want. And it seems pretty bad as a mono white general in general. This just seems like one of the worst options you have for mono white. Avacyn is probably still one of the best. Sheldon Menery in the RC might believe that this card shouldn't have been printed at all, as espoused in their letter to Watsi, but I don't see this being better than any existing option at these mana values. It is a one-sided Panharmonicon, like I said, so it doubles your ETB triggers, and that is definitely nice, but this is a strictly worse defensive option when looking at alternatives. Now, it also has the Torpor Orb text on it as well, so it disables your opponent's ETB effects. That's great. Torpor Orb costs 2 generic. There's also Hushbringer, which costs 2, which is much more aggressively costed for constructed decks. And while they do both cost, effectively a third of this mana cost, they make a huge impact in the game much earlier when you need them. In all formats. That's super important. 2 is so much faster than 4. You sideboard in Hushbringer, you sideboard in Torpor Orb. You're not going to be sideboarding in Elish Norn. My expectation is this is going to probably be priced similarly to Jingataxia's Progress Tyrant from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, around $15 plus or minus 3, and that 3 will be based on utility in constructed formats, but I don't really see this taking off anywhere as the marquee card of the set.
It's funny you mentioned Elish Norn, because I actually also picked it as one of my overhyped cards, but specifically I picked the Junji Ito art.
Oh, okay.
Look, I get it. Other people in pop culture art coming out is great. This card is not good. I was born with half a brain cell. I can see that when I read it. It's fine. It's not great. But the analog here and why I think this is incredibly overhyped is if you take a look at the Sorin the Mirthless alt art that was done by the Castlevania art designer, at one point it was pre-ordering for like $600 in foil. Mm-hmm. And now it's $50. Okay, this is not a $200 foil. I understand you can only get it in the complete edition. I also understand you get 2 of them in every single complete edition. And do you know how many mythics there are? 12. There's going to be a ton of these.
Yeah.
Every bundle is going to have this stuff. There's no reason it should pre-order for this much. There's just no reason whatsoever. 23. My apologies. but not all of them come in oil slick variants.
Woohoo!
Woo!
Yeah, I just think everything about this card is overhyped. Aside from the stats, a 4/7 vigilance creature for a 5 is above rate.
Yeah, that's fine on its own. And everyone will say, oh, yeah, but with those abilities, it's great. No, those abilities aren't particularly good.
No.
Like, you have to have a lot of stuff around them. And I understand that, sentiment from most players has come around that this card isn't as good as the rules committee thinks it is. But, I mean, really, it's not Panharmonicon.
No.
Because Panharmonicon goes in every deck.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be playing white for this card, which... I don't know if any of you played EDH recently. It's kind of a bad color in the format.
It is. And making this cost 5, which is restrictive enough, seems like it's going to control this card a lot better. It is not Braid's Nightmare, whatever, from Torment that comes down on like 2, or 1 with the Writ. It is not Gristlebrand in the 99 that you can just reanimate on turn 1. It is not that offensive. You can still reanimate this, but it's not going to take over the game because a removal spell that costs as little as 1 will take care of this. It is not that difficult. I don't see this commanding this price tag for anywhere realistic.
No.
For any realistic amount of time.
It's like, what, $60 for the regular version? That's absurd. Yeah. There's no reason for that.
No, not at all. The next card on my list as overhyped is Venerated Rot Priest, and this is one of the green rares that was spoiled via the Pack Coalition issue with Brothers War. And it is 1 green for a 1/2 with Toxic 1, but that's not the important part. The important part of this card is the trigger that says whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter. So you're basically just looking to target this or another creature that you control and trigger your opponent out of the game. I do believe this card is nuts. I read it and I thought this card was ridiculous. I just don't think it is a $12 to $16 ridiculousness worth of card. This might make the RC and WotC change the poison counter number in Commander, and there's a very real chance this mucks up Standard. And I believe that's kind of what this is meant to do. It's kind of meant to gas Commander a little bit and not really screw up the Standard. That might just be a side effect. There are a lot of cheap pump spells in Standard right now, so you can do a lot of damage with this really quickly, both because Toxic is not infect, so literally a lot of damage, and then from a record standpoint, just triggering people out of the game. Now, this does not revive the infect deck in other constructed formats because Plague Engineer is still a very real card, and it's very difficult to push damage from 1/1s through that effect. So this isn't going to do a lot there. And it's not a quote-unquote storm finisher, as you can respond to the storm trigger with any removal spell. I said this weeks ago when people started buying Ground Rift unnecessarily. Storm still has to trigger and resolve for all the copies of Ground Rift to go on the stack. If you respond to the storm trigger with anything from Stifle to a removal spell, that's it, game over. The creature's gone, nothing happens. So I don't think it goes there. There's this kind of red-green pseudo-storm deck that was just looking to target your creature with pump spells, and I think that's the kind of deck this goes in. Because it plays both ways, and people are wondering about the Toxic keyword, like, why? Why do you get to deal real damage and deal a poison on top of this? It just seems pushed, and that's what I think is going to muck up Standard, this two-way play, combined with the trigger. Is it $12 long-term? No. I believe this is a solid $5 rare, even if it does last in Standard as a pillar of the format, and if any version of that red-green storm deck does gain a foothold in Modern, I think it's just going to take a small format shift to playing removal again, and that takes care of this and tamps down both demand and the price tag. So I don't think this will ever get out of hand enough to take over a format and really push the price over $5.
Well, they have to print good removal, but yes.
Look, Bolt deals 3. This has two toughness.
That's fair. That was the reason that what was it? Ground Rift, the storm, your creature, whatever can't be blocked, started spike. Yeah, because of that card.
Yes.
Also, before I get to my next overhyped one, I agree. So it's fine, right?
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not going to be busted, especially because, again, What we've seen across Magic is cards just aren't worth as much as they used to be because of how many products we're getting. Speaking of which, I was mistaken. That Elish Norn does not come two in every complete bundle. There is one step in complete foil in every collector booster.
Nice.
Where you could potentially get an Elish Norn. On the topic of overpriced and toxic,
yes.
My next pick for something that is overpriced is Tyrannax Rex.
Okay.
Why is this card like $18 and only exists as a foil? 7 mana for an 8/8 that can't be countered. Trample, ward
Yes.
for colorless, haste, toxic 4. All right, I get it. If it's an 8/8 trampler, so if it connects at all, it's 4 toxic. Fine. This card's not great. It's not Questing Beast. It's not Elder Gargaroth. It has to connect to do anything and doesn't generate advantage. You know what Infect decks don't have? 7 mana.
Correct.
Ever. They have to reanimate Elish Norn or steal it somehow in order to get it to do anything. They can't do that. There is no deck where this is good. It's too slow for Modern. It's not great in Pioneer.
Nope.
Because, again, too slow. I just don't see where this goes, that it has this price point, especially, again, with as many collector boosters as there are, because it's, 10 foils per or something ridiculous like that? It's absolutely absurd.
Yep.
So I don't see this maintaining that value. I get it. It's a dinosaur. It's a Phyrexian dinosaur. And that's cool. But if I really want to play with dinosaurs, I'll just play on my dedicated Arc server instead. And that's a way better use of my time than spending 7 mana on this monstrosity.
So, I think what people keyed on really quickly was there's this illusion that it is the evolution of Carnage Tyrant. But it is not, because it has a lot of the same stats. Yeah. But Ward is not hexproof. Because this still dies to a Doomblade.
Yeah.
You know, it just takes 6 mana to Doomblade. You're casting 7, this on 7, your opponent can just Doomblade you at end of turn. And
also,
okay.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so people might feel like it's going to follow that trajectory of being this great mirror breaker for Standard. That's all I can come up with.
Yeah, it's also... Is Standard that bad? Is 7 mana attainable? Is that realistic?
Based on what I was seeing, yes, it seems like a slow format, but it doesn't seem like green is really involved.
Yeah,
so
it's been blue-white X or whatever forever.
Yeah. Along this train, though, so I had Tyrannosaurus Rex on my list of overhyped cards. It's on there as one of the many that I thought was overhyped. One of the cards that I believe, this is not on my list, it is underhyped, and similar but better, is Bloated Contaminator. It is about $4. It costs 2 and a green for a 4/4. Trample, Toxic 1. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, Proliferate. So after the first hit, it's dealing 2 poison counters every turn. It comes down a lot faster. I don't understand why this card doesn't have the hype behind it that Bad Carnage Tyrant does.
Yeah, I mean, just dropping at 3 is incredible.
Yeah. I think this... Off menu, I think that is actually a card that deserves a lot of attention, more so than Tyrannus, whatever the hell that was, the Rex one.
Tyrannax Rex.
Tyrannax Rex.
Whatever, get out of here.
All right. So, moving into the Goldilocks zone, just right, I believe it's pronounced Techathal Inquiry Dominus. This is the Blue Dominus. It costs 2 and 2 blue for a flying 3/5 with the text, if you would proliferate twice instead. It also has an activated ability, a colorless, and 2 Phyrexian blue. Remove 3 counters from among other artifacts, creatures, and planeswalkers you control. Put an indestructible counter on Techathal Inquiry Dominus. Now, the reason I think this is just right at a $17-ish price, the hype train, not price-wise, is because I think this is the best one in the cycle by a fair distance. Proliferating twice ends the game rather quickly, and historically, Contagion Engine maintains a fair price because of this. It is the closest analog we have to this card, and you can see when you look at the stocks graph for this, like once Proliferate really picks up in Commander, so does Contagion Engine's price, and it just maintains. Now, this is on another level. Contagion Engine costs 10 mana to proliferate twice, while Tekethal costs as little as 5 mana to proliferate 3 times. As a creature, this is more vulnerable than Contagion Engine, but the ability to immediately make it indestructible can shelter it on the way to a win. And I believe this settles closer to $10 or $12, but the hype is spot on. And because I think this is just going to mirror Contagion Engine. And the reason I got to the number 5 when it comes to mana is because there are cards in this set that say 1 mana, do some stuff, proliferate.
Yep. Which is pretty good. I think if there's one thing we've learned about cards like Contagion Engine, it's that literally just proliferating is enough to carry the value of a card.
Yep.
Put it on a 4-mana 3/5 flyer. Pretty good.
Yeah. So you don't proliferate 3 times, you proliferate twice. It's not 1 + 2, it's 2 instead of 1. Yeah. Right. But still.
It's still good. And then upside, you can make it indestructible as a 3/5 flyer for 4.
Yes.
Pretty good.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think there's anything bad about this card. There are negs across the rest of them. They're just not powerful enough, or they're weird enough, or they're not easy enough to utilize. A lot of people were really hyped up on Zoppendrill Hunger Dominus. That's the green one, and I've pointed this out a number of times. There's the enchantment from Midnight Hunt that has literally the same text as this card. It doubles the power of your creature every combat, and it seemed like people didn't realize this until Zoppendrill hit. And then, like, the hype train just took off. But it's like, if that enchantment is unplayed currently, what makes you think a creature that is technically more vulnerable is going to be played instead? Like, Zoppendrill costs 8. This enchantment that I'm talking about costs 5. Or 7 versus 5. Like, those are worlds apart. Like, this one Zoppendrill costs more than the card it's copying. Tekethal costs less. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Very, very good card. And I think this is one of, like, especially this Tekethal specifically, it was on my list of, like, potentially underhyped, actually.
Yeah, that's fair.
When speaking of long term, like, long term, that's a card that's probably $20 because of EDH.
That's fair, yeah.
But card is just really good.
Yeah.
All around. It's a very good card. For appropriately priced for me, or appropriately hyped, I actually had Soulless Jailer. So this one's been really flying under the radar. I haven't seen anyone talk about it. It's sitting right at like the $2 to $4 price point for foil or none. Permanent cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield, which is different than Grafdigger's Cage, because Grafdigger's Cage's creatures in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield. So this is permanent cards. So this stops Replenish, any of the enchantment revival stuff,
Crucible.
anything that Crucible, any of that stuff. It shuts down all of the reanimation shenanigans for anything, not just creatures.
Yep.
And then players can't cast non-creature cards from graveyards or exile. That is a little bit of downside to Grafdiggers, because Grafdiggers was they just can't cast any.
Yeah.
Creature or otherwise.
Yep.
So this doesn't get around like Unearth or whatever other mechanics are similar to Unearth. But in terms of like just general graveyard hate, I mean, Cage has been sitting at $2 to $4 for 2 reprints now. So this may even be something that, depending on how Standard goes, or Pioneer, may see a little bit of a bump. I just don't see it right now, but I think price-wise, this effect is like spot on in the $2 to $4 range. It's something that, you know, for me, I don't know that I'd want to pick up in excess of them, but I wouldn't be mad having like 2 or 3 in a binder somewhere, like my Smalls binder that's, hey, look through here to even out a trade.
Yeah. It really is the utility in the first line of text on each one of these cards that's going to determine the price long term. Because Grafdigger's Cage turns off like Court of Calling and turned off Birthing Pod, so you couldn't just throw a creature from your library into play, which was relevant at that point in time. Now we're looking at permanent cards and graveyards can't enter the battlefield. So yeah, there are a number of ways to do that now. What are we going to get in the future? We don't know, but this is an important card to look at and an important card to have. Grafdigger's Cage wasn't immensely powerful when it came out. It just became really good over time because of what eventually happened to various formats. And so, yeah, to your point, I don't think I'd go super deep, but for 2 mana, this works out pretty well. It's a 0/4, so it dodges Bolt and most red removal. It loses to Pinpoint, White removal, and Fatal Push.
Abrupt Decay, sure.
Which Cage Law died to anyway.
Exactly.
Right. So you gotta it's still weak to the artifact removal, but at the end of the day, what does it matter? If it wasn't a creature, it would still die to nature's claim, just like a cage would.
Yeah.
So you gotta weigh and measure it, and I think not going too deep on this is the correct call. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to go too deep on sideboard cards ever. You just want to make sure you have the set that you need, and I think for a card like this, it is as hyped as it needs to be right now, because like you said, it's not going to blow the doors off. It just turns off a graveyard. Like, pay attention to it. It's good.
I will say the only time that I went as deep as I could on a sideboard card was when Pitting Needle was a $40 sideboard card because of JIT.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oof.
That and like Leyline of Sanctity.
Yeah.
Like stuff like that, yeah. But that's because everybody at the event's going to clamor for it, so you know you got to pick it up. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to underhyped, I have one card, and I did not have a lot of cards in this list. It is surrounded by cards like Bloated Contaminator, which we talked about. It Koth, Fire Resistance, because I think a Planeswalker that creates a Valakut emblem 2 turns after it ETBs on 4 that always tutors up a mountain is really good, and Glissa Sunsayer. So these are the other 3 cards on my underhyped list that I'm sure we'll talk about in the future. This last one, though, however, slots immediately into the modern format, either as a main deck card or a sideboard card. And it is Kemba Ka Enduring. Now, this is by far and away the best Kemba that we have seen. This costs...
Not saying much, but...
Correct. Because it costs less than, like, 4 for once. This is a 1 and a white for a 2/2. And much like all the other Kembas, this one does care about cats and hats. So... whenever Kemba, Ka Enduring, or another cat enters the battlefield under your control, attach up to 1 target equipment you control to that creature. Equipped creatures you control get +1/+1. And it also has an activated ability. 3 double white, create a 2/2 white cat creature token. So that token can vacuum up a Colossus Hammer. Just like Kemba can vacuum up a Colossus Hammer. And you can see where we're going. So, like I said, this immediately slots into a top tier modern deck, either in the main or the side, and allows it to go either short or long, depending on where you need to be, where this card exists. The lack of buzz for this seems pretty wrong. It just seems pretty low. This is going to take a deck that historically has problems in the mid to late game and give it some ability to hang. Not just because it sucks up a hammer, but because of the ability. Now, starting with Modern, this immediately vacuums up Hammer to swing. It vacuums up Shadow Spear. It vacuums up... what else is in that deck? Cranial Plating.
Yeah.
It allows you to... it does that, but it also allows you to sidestep the need for Pure Steel Paladin or Sigarda's Aid, and you run 6 to 8 copies of those in total. So it becomes another tool in the kit. You don't have to worry about opening on one of those and a Colossus Hammer. If you go Hammer on 1, Kemba on 2, that's it. You're good to go. You don't need to have the Pure Steel Paladin. You don't need to have the Sigarda's Aid. Out of the board, it does the same thing, but allows you to continue to play a realistic long game with the activated ability and subsequent trigger to move hammers around. Stepping into Commander, this plays several ways. The most obvious one is the Cat's Tribal deck, which, while Tribal at its core, it's oftentimes an equipment deck. And from there, we start to look at the equipment theme on Rec in general, and we see summated, white is one of, if not the most popular colors for that theme. So you have cats, equipment, and that really big overlap. So this plays in 3 places immediately. With the popularity of the confluence of elements that make up this card, it seems well underhyped and underpriced at like 60 cents. But that's not saying much. I don't think this is going to be like a $5 rare. This might just be a Kemba that finally costs like $2 or $3.
Yeah. This was one of the cards that I had on my like underhyped because again, it's one of those where it's like, hey, this is just good. Like it's well costed. It slots into decks immediately, which is obviously kind of a big deal.
Yes.
And it's not something that has a ton of alt arts. I actually don't know. Does it have any?
Yeah, it has 2. It has
the borderless and the step and complete foil.
Yep.
Yeah. But it being costed what it is in a tribe that, while not good, I don't really know if meme value is the right thing.
They keep making cards for the cat EDH deck in
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it, chibi form or cutesy form. Philly.
Yeah.
All the cards that they're in the secret layer there are all cats. It's like Soul of Windgrace and Anointed.
Yep.
Whatever, Pouncer, whatever, Adorned Pouncer.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. But to your point, that meme value is like the cat's theme. And then you just gotta want to dig past it to look at like, okay, well, realistically, what do equipment deck looks like? What do equipment decks look like in EDH? Oh, 16,000 of them are Boros. Cool, that's white. After that, it's like Azurius and then Celestia. Like, cool, there's white. Just
white's in all of them.
Yeah, it runs the table when it comes to like dominant color and summation for equipments. And now you have a card that plays both like casually and memey in the cat stuff, and you have something that plays seriously in the equipment deck.
Just really good.
Yeah. All right.
Mine that I think is underhyped, and this one's kind of strange because when it first got spoiled, everyone was like, "Holy shit, this card's insane," and it kind of died off since. And that is, I guess, the new protagonist now that Jace is completed. Holly fucking Luya, please kill him. The Eternal Wanderer.
Okay.
So no more than one creature can attack it. That's actually really good since it's a walker, and guess what? It does all of the things you want a walker to do to be good. Now, it is 6 mana. Currently, we're sitting at about $5. Why do I think this is underhyped? Because this is a card that I think in a year is 15 to 20 plus because of EDH. Not because of any 60-card format, but 6 mana enters with 5 loyalty. +1, blink something.
Yep.
That's really good. And the best part is, it's not blink something of yours.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's anything.
Any
artifact or creature.
Yep.
So if someone has Collector Oof out and you want to use all of your mana rocks, great, I'm a blink it. It doesn't come back till the beginning of its owner's next end step. Great. Then it has the Gideon Ally of Zendikar ability. 0, make a 2/2. But this one has double strike.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yep.
And then the thing that really got me thinking this is absolutely nutter butters for EDH is actually its alt. You can do it the turn it comes down. Its -4 is for each player, choose a creature that player controls.
Yep.
Each player sacrifices all creatures they control not chosen. So it is immediately a board wipe.
Yep.
Where you get to keep a creature and only one creature can attack it every turn, so you've got a blocker in place. It's just really good removal that solves a lot of problems. Being able to pinpoint the creature they keep obviously is very good. And sure, 6 mana is a lot, but in EDH, it's really not. That's like turn 3.
Yeah. No, it is.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's just a really good, aggressive, but also very like defensive walker for EDH. And obviously, most Pillow Fort decks out there are Planeswalker based. This literally has a built-in Pillow Fort for itself. Granted, it's not as good as the Wandering Emperor because it doesn't have flash and do all the other stuff. But it's still pretty good, and I would very much expect in like a year, this card's going to be in the $15 to $20 range just because of EDH. Assuming we don't get some ridiculous secret lair, it doesn't see a list reprint or any of the other ways. But this card I don't think is getting nearly enough hype in EDH. It's just really good.
Yeah, I read this card. I don't even think I looked at the price. I just thought it was kind of ho-hum, but I think it's because I got trapped the same way a lot of other people did, which is just the other Nahiri and what's-his-face, the Gruul Commander.
Yeah.
Tyvar the Brawler. We had these other really splashy planeswalkers come out that people just fawned over for a couple of days. Like, people were even going nuts over the 7 mana Kea. And Luca, that's the Gruul one.
Yeah.
Where people were just going nuts over some of these planeswalkers, rightfully so.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very good.
That the Eternal Wanderer just slipped by me because I was just like, oh, it's another planeswalker. It's probably, like, super duper hyped, and to discuss it's just going to be worthless because you talk about one, you talk about them all when everybody's like, oh my god, and so I literally just skipped it for this.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it too was just so many people just got caught up in the completed hype, right? They paid attention to the completed walkers. They didn't
Yeah.
look at, Wandering or Wanderer. They didn't look at Kaido. They didn't look at Kaya, who has hexproof.
Yeah, that one was weird to see that it's just one word as a passive, hexproof.
But there's a lot of, those walkers all got overshadowed. And I think Tyvar, honorable mention, may be another one that is very undervalued. Because, you get to tap everything like it has haste.
Yeah.
It ramps. It's pretty good.
Yeah, we talked about 1,000-Year Elixir as a pick a while back.
Yeah, it's just 1,000-year on a dude.
Yeah, at a more reasonable mana cost.
Yes.
It's like, this is probably one of the only constructed level planeswalkers I saw in this set. A lot of them look decent. They're going to get close. I think the Eternal Wanderer absolutely has opportunity to play in constructed, but I think Tyvar just... People are talking about it just slotting into Devoted Druid combo because you got to look out. Everything combos with the Devoted Druid, so the meme says. But in all honesty, yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it does. This gives it haste for 3. And it untaps it, too. You get a free untap with it. How could you not? Or it brings it back from the graveyard.
Everything you want.
Yeah, it just works with that card. So, yeah. Eternal Wanderer is a good look for an underhyped card. And... I'm the use case for that. Absolutely. Yeah. I know this one. I can't imagine that we're going to get a lot of alt art on this. They haven't done much with the Wanderer itself, the Wandering Emperor.
It's got the manga treatment, I guess.
Yeah, it's got the inset stuff, but that's to your point. If we get another Planeswalker secretly or a Planeswalker, whatever down the line, absolutely. But otherwise, I think it's pretty solid overall. Good luck, especially for the price point. I didn't realize it was this cheap.
Yeah. I just assume, it's a Wanderer with passive and lines of text. It's got to be 10 plus.
Yeah.
On the low end. I'm like, oh no, it's actually at 5 to 6. And the other thing is, hey, guess what's going to happen on release weekend? It's going to tank.
Yeah, I can't imagine what this is going to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Picks?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you went first, so I'll go first this week.
Yeah.
That's what's up. All right, so this week I'm going back to EDH and I'm going back our commander, and I'm going back to the color green. And this is a card that just hit my list very recently, and just I wondered why I was on a hot list, and I'm still having to question that. But now it's on a rocket, so we just got to get in front of it. And this is the card Lignify from Lorwin. This is a tribal enchantment, Treefolk Aura. It costs 1 and a green. Enchant creature, because it's an aura, so duh. Enchanted creature is a 0/1 Treefolk with no abilities. That's
None.
it. That's all this card does. Now, I put it on my list. Actually, it wasn't November. It was 2 weeks ago. January 13th. Card Kingdom was buying 2 for 10 cents. And TCG had 121 at $1.57. Now Card Kingdom is buying 25 at about 40 cents a piece. Still. And there are 118 listings left on TCG Player for $1.69. So we're seeing trends in the directions that we really want to kind of show this card is currently moving both places. Now, when we look at Commander and we say, well, what does this card do in Commander? Well, if you're playing green, you should probably slot this into 99 as creature control. It's not Beast Within. It's not Songs of the Dryad. It's not a number of other things, but it is pretty solid overall for 2. Breaking it down a little more, while we can immediately compare this to, like I said, Song of the Dryads, Imprisoned to the Moon, and Darksteel Mutation. And this isn't any of them, because it doesn't remove the commander from the game in such a way that it can't be dealt with easily and then replayed. The commander can just block and then be replayed. So that's something to remember. It does lose all abilities, though, so it kind of functions similarly.
Yeah.
The one thing that I do find interesting is that this is tutorable by Treefolk Harbinger, and that does play into some of the commanders and deck identities that we see on Rec. And I'll pull that up because it is worth the laugh. So we're going to see things like Kaima, we're going to see Thrun, we'll see Miri Cat Warrior, Verdaloth the Ancient, that plays into the Treefolk stuff. We'll see Sithis, we see Eutropia, Jedit. We see a lot of weird things on here. So it's an interesting breakdown when it comes to the spell. Now, This does attach itself to Enchantress style decks, ranging from Mono Green to Selesnya and Gruul, the generals that I mentioned. And most of them are looking to end the game quickly and not really pillow fort up, which does make them a little more unique than what you think of when you think of Enchantress. And I did think that there was a hidden ability on here for Landwalk, because there are a lot of Landwalking generals in that list. But this is a Tree Folk with no abilities. It's not a Tree Folk Forest. So I'm still very confused by that one. Yeah, you can do Yavimaya, and you're great. But there's one commander that really threw me for a loop, and it's Ayumi, the Last Visitor, and it sent me down this rabbit hole of like, but why not? Ayumi is a 7/3 for 5 legendary creature spirit with legendary landwalk, and I thought, oh well, you just turn the commander into a forest and you just walk right over it. No, that's Songs of the Dryad. That's not this card. It's not like the hidden theme, but these cards do go together in that theme because you're still turning off the commander. Like, it's just kind of interesting how this all plays together like that, and did throw me off a little bit in this research. So, outside of the obvious play within a theme, Lignify as a removal spell looks like it's spreading across the format for both the self-reporting audience as well as the true kitchen table crowd. It's very difficult to identify why all of a sudden, if I bring up the stocks graph again, we just see it start to kind of rocket around DMU. Yeah. DMU didn't offer us a lot in regards to new generals. We got a new Namada reprint, which doesn't do a whole lot with Tree Folk, and we got a new Vertaloth printing. And that one doesn't do a lot with Tree Folk. So it was just kind of interesting to see just all of a sudden. And it's not like this spike is correlatory to Tree Folk Harbinger, which is something that has been on the move for a while on CK's hot list. These moves are independent. Lignify was not moving at the same time. There was a gap. I have Tree Folk Harbinger on my watch list. Yeah. And Lignify just hit. Tree Folk's got to have been on there for like 6 months or so. So it seems very much like this is people coming back to a card from the heyday of the format. Also of note, the new Atraxa can hit this with its Enter the Battlefield, despite not naming Tribal in the reminder text. Tribal is still a card type, so it's still hittable by that Atraxa, but the spike is not correlatory to that. So we're still kind of digging around for the reasoning for this, but this is what I got up top. So really what we have here is a mana-efficient removal spell that doesn't leave around a 3/3 like Beast Within does. It leaves around a 0/4, which is a little easier to deal with. So it's limited in scope in terms of targets, but it's still a high priority removal spell to be considered in the format. And what I mean by that is Beast Within hits any permanent, as long as the Dryad hits creatures. Imprison the Moon also hits artifacts. Like, they're kind of widespread. Moving on. Timeline, real quick.
Yeah.
We're on a rocket, but it's kind of still unexplained. This sells about $200 a month. 200 copies a month between Nearman and LP. I don't understand the recent spike. It's very difficult to suss out, but we're looking to get ahead. So this moves from $1.50 to $2 very, very quickly, and from there doesn't really seem to be a ceiling according to TCG Player. People just keep listening up and up and up and up. I believe there's going to be a period coming up shortly where we will be able to turn these around into the open market for profit, but the double to quad up, depending on how you bundle these, will be a few months out. So if you wanted to try and get a brick from somebody, you can get them for as cheap as $1 and spread shipping across them. Otherwise, you're going to piecemeal like singles or doubles out for like closer to $2, which puts that double up a while out. As far as Byless is concerned, if CK keeps trending upwards this way, it's probably about 3 months to break even and 6 months to profit. Equity on a reprint is interesting. We got tribal spells in modern master sets. We don't really get them elsewhere. No. And they are, I don't want to say the good ones, but it's Tarfire and Tarfire. I think that's about it. We didn't get Nameless Inversion. We didn't get Crib Swap. We didn't get a lot of those. So it really has just been this. And Lignify has been in a commander set before, I believe. It was in a dual deck. Okay, it's just a dual deck, so not even a master set. So I know we're going back to Lorwin, and I think that's the only time we're going to see this come back, is when we go back to Lorwin, where the type was originally given to us, and that's it. I don't think we're going to see this really in a commander product if it hasn't been there yet. By quantity, If you want to move these in trade, somewhere between 8 and 12, I think that's a great look. If you're looking to move these to buy list, 12 or more would be fine, but I wouldn't shotgun my entire quantity immediately to buy list. I'd slow drip these out. And I was able to pick up a couple from TCG Player and probably have about 12 from collection buying from the heydays of Commander, and I'm happy staying there. And I want to pick up any more of these. I do have faith in the card overall. I just don't know how good the long-term demand is going to be for this card if it's just picking up now after so many years of stagnation. So we're looking to just get out ahead of it, make hay while the sun shines, and then cut loose.
Yeah, I think I've always liked this card. I've always liked Imprisoned in the Moon type effects. This one has always been very interesting because it also can be used offensively. Because if you're in a Doran build, that's suddenly a 4/4.
I did want to bring up that old ass Doran synergy that people wanted to call a combo, which was like Harbinger fetches Harbinger, Harbinger fetches Harbinger, fetches Harbinger, fetches Doran. Yeah, exactly. It's a Brian Kibler line of play.
Fucking BK, God. Love the guy. But that is the most BK thing I've ever heard in my life. Absurd.
But yeah, you're right. It was something I've been thinking about all weekend too. I was like, I remember the combo, but I don't know if it's worthwhile to bring up the fact that like this is the dumbest thing that people were doing in a standard format.
It was so bad. My pick.
Mm-hmm.
First off, I want to apologize. I picked cards in this set, in this cycle a while ago, saying, man, just go ahead and buy them. They're never going to come back to Mirrodin. Why would they ever come back to Mirrodin? They'd have to do Infect, and they'd have to do Phyrexian Mana, and that's garbage. And these cards were plane specific. Copperline Gorge. That's what I'm choosing as the example. But it's basically indicative of Copperline, Dark Slick, the whole shebang.
Yep.
There's a few reasons I'm picking this. First off, these are going to hit an all-time low because we're going to have a shit ton of them on the market. Second off, after giving us an entire year of Phyrexia, Mirrodin, whatever, I think it's going to be a long time before they come back.
Mm-hmm.
Notably, these are now in Pioneer.
Yes.
Notably, much to a lot of people's chagrin, Play Magic, the Pro Tour Twitter, said, hey, next season is, guess what? Pioneer and limited for RCQs only. Seems like a great time to get in on this then. Yep. We're going to be at an all-time low here. Great. You know what else sounds awesome? Picking them up because people are going to need them for Pioneer.
Yep.
They're going to need them for Modern. Maybe they're going for Poor Man's Legacy. They're going to need them there. So right now, all of these, full art, whatever, every version, most of them are hovering in the $5 to $10 range. That means that come Friday? Tomorrow? Oh, no. Pre-release is this weekend. Next week, when they actually release, these cards are going to be like dirt. And these are the kind of things that are always played. Mm-hmm. Fast lands, especially in Modern, which is faster than Legacy somehow, you need them. You have to have that duel that comes into play untapped.
Yes. Yep.
Decks that are very mana tight. So Bogles, for example, ran for Razor Verge Thicket and still does, and it only runs, like less than 18 lands.
Something like that, yeah.
These cards are very good. Even, take a look at the ones from Kaladesh. They see play everywhere they're legal.
Yes.
Now these are getting an extra format. We're getting a surge of supply. So it's a weird situation where you have a lot of demand and a shit ton more supply. But based on printing, we all know they're going to be dirt before they go back up. So quantity-wise, well, you want 4 of them. Every single one of them, you want to get it in multiples of 4. This is not something people are playing in EDH. You're not moving it as, a one of.
Oh, yeah.
Some that move like 2 to 3, whatever. That's fine. You still want it in the quantities of 4 because it's better to just have it, and then you can add one later if the set gets broken up or whatever. Timeline-wise, again, I see 2 timelines panning out here.
Okay.
We'll see a little bit of a bump come RCQ Pro Tour whatever season,
Yes.
where
Yeah.
we start having Pioneer qualifiers. You're going to see a lot of iteration on decks because now we have access to more efficient mana. So we may be able to cut colors out that we were kind of splashing because we didn't have a favorable way to get it before. When that happens, you'll probably see a little bit of a surge.
Mm-hmm.
More importantly, come similar to Wanderer Eternal, about a year from now, once people have forgotten all about All Will Be One, they've forgotten all about the 12 different variants that you get in 5 different ways. People are still going to need this card, and we're not going to have the supply, because if there's one thing we've kind of noticed, it's, guess what? Everything's getting open now. There's not a lot of product that's sitting around getting unopened. Prime example, do you know what distros are out of? Brothers War. There's no set boosters at Southern. So if we're hitting that, you can best believe that a set which has staples like this will see a surge in price once that happens, and once that set stops being produced, and there's not a ton of it sitting in distro. So we've either got probably about 2 to 3 months on when you'll start to see a surge, or about a year. Either way, if you get in the next week when some of these are even sub $5, doesn't matter. Get 10 of each. 12, sorry. Throw them in a box, forget about them. I am sure we have all spent more money on more stupid things than that. Because if there's one thing you can say about every single format in Magic, the mana base is almost always the most important part of the deck, and it's what you need to build first.
Absolutely. Yep. No, I think this is a good time to revisit that when you have very important and foundational lands to work with. It's not like we get that all the time, and at this point, everybody knows the value of a shock land. Everybody knows the value of the Horizon lands. So when they finish that set, people will run to them. And it's nice seeing these come back to help with a format like Pioneer, and to help. Commander players aren't going to clamor for these, but there are still Commander players that have ETB tapped lands into their deck. Either the commons that gain a life or the uncommons that do nothing, because that's all they had. So taking one of these out of the binder for a couple bucks might very well be in their wheelhouse, because there's upside to this versus the other lands. So yeah, to your point, this isn't a Commander draw, but there's definitely like a little bit of upside to playing these in Commander over something slower like one of the uncommon lands. And at a very attractive price point, yeah, absolutely. Why not pick one of those up in trade if you feel like you can or you want? Opening up deck design space in Pioneer, to your point, also hugely important, because who knows what happens when certain color pairings have access to faster mana, to better mana overall. It's not like it's going to push mono green out of the format, but it gives Rakdos a better land base for sure, because now you can play 4 of the fast line alongside 4 of the shock land.
4 Black Leaves, it turns out, is really good for that deck.
Yeah, Jund played them in Modern. The Adnaz deck played Seacrum Coasts. Pod played Razor Verge Thickets. All these decks that needed to be fast and have access to untapped mana from turns 1 through 4 effectively needed it to compete in a format that was very fast. And those formats also required skill and understanding how to sequence your land, so it actually also increases the skill level of the format inherently and can make for better games, because you have more decision points to make. Unless you're just playing like the red-green deck, at which point in time, you just play your lands until somebody's dead. But either way, this is a great look. They're hard to get once they disappear, which is the point you were dancing around. Like, absolutely. Now is going to be the time to pick them up rather than later. And doing it release weekend or the weekend after is going to be the easiest one. Or some of the easiest times. The easiest one is probably going to be the pre-release weekend, when you just sit at events and listen for the players groan as they open kits and find lands in their packs. Because they will be disenfranchised that one of the rares was a land, and how difficult it's going to be to try and win down one good card. And then you just trade it away from them. Because they just don't want to deal with this card anymore.
It's great, though.
Absolutely.
I like that this is happening. I think it's, obviously I like it. I picked it. But look, man, this time I don't think we're coming back for a while.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. And so, being able to re-up, being able to refresh,
Mhm.
is always a good look, because if not to make money on it yourself, it's a way to get in on the cheap. It's a good reminder that, hey, these are
Yeah.
coming back. If you didn't get them before, you should think about getting them now. There's going to be a protracted window in which to do so. Keep your eyes open and pick up what you need as you need it. So,
Yep.
absolutely. Anything else for the week?
I'm good.
All right. So for at MTG Cabalcast on Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, and YouTube, I am at Halt. I am Reptar. You are.
At Thirsty Sizzler.
And we'll see you next week.